Yo, what's good, Jets Nation? This is NY Jets Media, bringing you guys the next video on my channel. And in this one, I'll be bringing you guys my thoughts on General Manager Joe Douglas and why I think he is the man to build this Jets football team the right way. And he could potentially make a dynasty team. Yes, I know that is a crazy word I just used in dynasty, but in this video, I will be breaking down Joe Douglas's philosophy when it comes to the draft, free agency, financial flexibility, culture, and all that type of stuff. And I'm really excited to bring you guys my thoughts on Joe Douglas because I really think he has what it takes to build a team the right way. And before I get into the video, I just want to mention you guys can follow me at NYJets Media on Instagram and Twitter. I have a fan page on both of those accounts, so if you guys want to go check me out on there, feel free to do so. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I've been posting daily Jets content, and I'm really excited to be very consistent in giving you guys content all throughout the summer, carrying over into this season. With that being said, let's jump right into Joe Douglas. So, as you guys know, last year, the Jets went out and fired Mike Maccagnan after he was done with the draft, and it was a pretty shaky move because I was curious why we let Maccagnan go through with the offseason if we're just going to let him go. So Joe Douglas came in the summer, and he had to work with what Mike Maccagnan did in free agency by spending a lot of money on Le'Veon Bell and CJ Mosley and drafting guys like Quinn and Williams, and he didn't really have his own offseason yet. So here we are in 2020. Joe Douglas finally had his own offseason, his first one as a Jets general manager. He went through free agency, he went through the draft, and he made some trades. And I really love what Joe Douglas is doing. And you can tell the one thing I've noticed of Joe Douglas that I'm going to be breaking down in this video is he is thinking in the long term instead of the short term. What I mean by that, I feel like Mike Maccagnan was kind of fighting for his job every year because he needed the Jets to be performing at a high level the next season. So he'll go out and spend a lot of money on big ticket names like Trumaine Johnson. He got Le'Veon Bell and CJ Mosley. Those are Maccagnan signings. I mean, I love those two players, but we're giving him a lot of money. And the difference between Maccagnan and Douglas that I've seen just from one offseason is Joe Douglas is way more disciplined. He knows that you do not win football games in free agency, and it's all through the draft. So what Joe Douglas did in free agency was go out there and sign a bunch of quality depth players for cheap deals. He wanted to use his cap space that we have and spend it on a lot of players on one-year deals, prove-it deals, because I feel like Joe Douglas is trying to build a foundation. He's trying to see, okay, who do I love? Who do I want to give an extension to? I'm not pouring in a lot of money into any player that I'm not sure on because Joe Douglas is a culture guy. When he came in here and his first press conference as the Jets general manager, he said, quote unquote, I want to build the best culture in sports. And as a Jets fan, hearing that, it kind of blows our mind like, okay, best culture in sports. We have never had a good, stable culture as a Jets organization. It's always been toxic. It's always been bad, at least in my lifetime because I'm a young Jets fan. So hearing a guy like Joe Douglas come in here and say that with confidence that he wants to build the best culture in sports really opens my eyes. And it really makes me really amped up for Joe Douglas because I feel like he understands what it takes to build a winning football organization. It doesn't come from signing big ticket names for free agency and spending a lot of money and winning the offseason. It comes through building through the draft and signing quality depth players and getting depth throughout the whole team. And another thing that Joe Douglas prioritizes that Maccagnan did not is the trenches. Mike Maccagnan was the one that only drafted defensive line, but it's like he forgot that there was even an offensive line position, and that is probably, if not one of the most important positions in the NFL, is you need to have a solidified offensive line for your offense to work. Your quarterback cannot perform at a high level if your offensive line is absolutely atrocious, which is what the Jets offensive line has been ever since we ever since Mangold retired and DeBrickshaw Ferguson retired. Our Jets offensive line has been so bad, so our offense has been so bad. So Joe Douglas, a former offensive lineman, he is making sure that this offensive line is going to be built the right way. And seeing the way he dealt with the offensive line in his first offseason just shows you that he's building this team for the future. He got young guys coming off their rookie year deals like Connor McGovern, who's 26 years old. We got George Fant. We got Greg Van Roten, those are all veterans that played the game and understand the offensive line position. We have not had competent people playing on this offensive line on the Jets in a while. So bringing in a bunch of names like that is really something I look at Joe Douglas. If this was Mike McCagnon's in 2020 offseason, I feel like he would have targeted like Conklin and gave him a $15 million deal or something like that and spent a lot of money on one offensive lineman. But instead, Joe Douglas spread out all the love and got a bunch of players to fill in that offensive line position. And he understands in 2019, we were killed with injuries. He's preparing for injuries. He's preparing each position to have as much depth as possible because it's all about that next man up mentality. And the more depth we have, the better, because obviously it's football. There's going to be injuries and you need to be prepared. So going into Joe Douglas's draft strategy, he really understands the value of draft capital. We saw Joe Douglas's first draft as a New York Jets general manager in 2020. He traded back multiple times. In the second round, we had a great spot in the 48th pick. And what does Joe Douglas do? He trades back with the Seattle Seahawks to acquire an extra third-round pick. And we still end up getting Denzel Mims, who I think is going to be an absolute steal. And we get an additional third-round pick. With that additional third-round pick, what do we do with that? Oh, wait, we traded away to the New England Patriots to get an additional 2 fourth-round picks and a 6th-round pick next year, which basically we traded for Demaryius Thomas with the New England Patriots. So we basically just gave him back what we got. So basically, Joe Douglas turned the 48th overall pick into 3 draft picks and a player. So that is just what a GM should be doing. We, as a Jets fan, I've never seen a GM actually value that. And for somebody like Joe Douglas to really do that in his first draft shows me so much. He is really understanding, like, okay, there are a lot of holes on this team. One draft pick is not going to solve everything. So he needed to trade back and get as many picks as he can. And he used one of those picks on a backup quarterback in James Morgan. And I know there's a lot of people criticizing that pick, but you need to have a solid backup on a cheap rookie deal. And I feel like James Morgan is that guy, and that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to trade back and use that pick that he gets in the trade on a quarterback. But that's just another example of something. So, and another draft pick I want to talk about, Ashton Davis. Ashton Davis, when he first was drafted, I was scratching my head. Why don't we just get a safety? That is the last position of need because we have Jamal Adams and Marcus May. And then I digested it. I went over Ashton Davis. I looked at the Jets depth chart and I realized, oh wait, Joe Douglas is thinking for the future. He's not thinking about 2020. He's thinking about, I want to draft players this year that is going to be with this team in the long run. And I think Ashton Davis is going to be the future Jets free safety alongside of Jamal Adams. Marcus May is entering his last year of his contract. He's probably going to be gone after this year unless he can work a cheap deal and provide depth at that position. But I think Ashton Davis is going to be our long-term answer at that safety spot. And another guy like Braden Mann, who we drafted, a punter. Why do we get a punter if there's so many different positions of need? It's because he saw a lot of potential in a punter, and he wants to be solidified at that position for the long run. He doesn't want to worry about a punter. He wants to pay a really good punter a really cheap deal, which like a 6th-round pick is going to make no money. And having a guy like that who can be a potential Pro Bowl punter is really valuable for the special teams, especially if you're in defensive games. So what I'm trying to say is this 2020 draft from Joe Douglas show me that he's not drafting for the 2020 season. He's drafting for the future. He wants to build a team. He wants to be competing every single year consistently. And free agency, I already went over it, but I want to get back to it. He really spread out the love in the money situation, and he gave so many players 1-year cheap deal somehow. Jordan Jenkins got a 1-year deal for cheap. Brian Poole, he somehow got a 1-year deal for cheap. I expected both of those players to hit the open market and get pretty expensive deals for multi-year. Joe Douglas is valuing his financial flexibility for years to come. In 2021, the Jets are going to have so much cap space, and as a Jets fan, I'm wired to like think about who we gonna splash sign, who we gonna sign for a mega deal in 2021. But no, I forgot. We have Joe Douglas. We're not going to go and get that big ticket name for make him the highest paid player in his position. We're going to use that money and go on the second tier level and get a bunch of players to provide depth and young guys that are hungry. You know what I mean? That's the difference of Joe Douglas and a Mike Maccagnan. He's building depth and culture. He wants guys that want to play for the Jets, that love the game of football, that they don't have to worry about their character or off the field issues. That's why I feel like he gave out so many one-year deals, because he had one season with the Jets, but he needs another one to really understand, who do I really want to put money into and invest money into. Jamal Adams is a perfect example of this. He is being disciplined in this contract situation. Joe Douglas is telling Jamal Adams, listen, we value you on this team. We want you to make you a Jet for life. But when it comes to our cap situation, we can do that for you next year. Right now, financially and where the world is, we don't think we can do that. And hopefully Jamal Adams can come to his senses and say, okay, that's fine. I will take my extension next offseason. And that shows that Joe Douglas isn't afraid. He's disciplined and he knows what he's doing. He understands who he wants on this Jets team long term, and Jamal Adams fits every single trait that is a Joe Douglas type of guy. Extremely passionate, loves the game of football, hates to lose more than he loves winning. How many times have we seen Jamal Adams just depressed after we lose? And I don't blame him. He's passionate. He loves the game. He hates to lose. Joe Douglas wants players like that hates to lose so much that they just do everything in their power to win. And that's why I feel like Joe Douglas is building this team the right way. He's prioritizing the right positions. He's getting depth at the cornerback position, and we had so many injuries. He's getting depth at the offensive line. He really understands that it all starts up front in the trenches. He said in an interview, it all starts on the defensive line and the offensive line. If you can control the trenches on both sides of the football, you're going to be successful. If you can dominate in the run game in the trenches or even in the pass game on offense, you're going to wear out the defensive line and just run it down their throats. On the defensive side of the ball, if the defensive line is just obliterating the offensive line and they're just getting tackles for loss, sacking the quarterback, getting pressure, then you're going to win football games. He understands it all starts up front, and he's prioritizing this offensive line. And this is only the beginning of the Joe Douglas era. I cannot wait to see where this Jets team is going to be in 2023. Being a realistic Jets fan, I'm looking at this Jets team in 2020, and I understand it's going to be a prove-it year. It's another year where Joe Douglas has to really see what he needs to do. I think that he is going to build a dynasty. By the time it's 2025 and Sam Darnold has his extension, hopefully Jamal Adams is still on the team, and we have a beefed up top 5 offensive line in the league with weapons around Sam. Yes, you heard me say that. I think Joe Douglas has potential to, if we give him time and we're patient, really build this offensive line the right way. He understands the position. Mekhi Becton hopefully will be our left tackle for the future. Connor McGovern will probably be gone by then, but he's going to have so much draft picks to really get his guys in the locker room that he wants to build. I don't think we're ever going to be lacking depth at any position by that time. You know what I mean? I think Joe Douglas's forward thinking is going to elevate this Jets team for consistent success. And yes, it all comes down to the players and the coaches. Adam Gase is a big wild card in this whole discussion, because is Adam Gase going to be the coach in 2025? Will he be the head coach in even 2021? We don't know. And hopefully that whole thing will get worked out, whether Adam Gase is good or not. We fire him, we hire someone else, but that's another story. I think Joe Douglas, as the player personnel, GM, drafting players, signing players, trading for players, is perfect for this Jets team, because we have never had a disciplined guy that understands having cap flexibility, having draft capital, trading for players like a trade that's just so good and underrated. Is he just traded a 7th round pick for a guy like Alex Lewis. Alex Lewis was like a no-name guy in the Ravens that was like a backup, but somehow he comes to the Jets and he comes in for injured Kalichi Osemele, and he's the best offensive lineman. That's an example of a Joe Douglas trade. He understands players like I've never seen before. There's so many high up people in the NFL that respect Joe Douglas. They understand that he's learned under really good GMs in Baltimore and Philly, and he just has the pedigree to be an all-time great GM. And I really think that we are so lucky that we have Joe Douglas. I remember when Mike Maccagnan left and Joe Douglas was even available to be the Jets general manager. I did my research on him. I looked him up. I'm like, oh my God, if we can get Joe Douglas, he has potential to build this team the right way, and we can be consistently good. So I know this is a lot, and this is my breakdown of Joe Douglas, and as you guys can tell, I am really high on him, and I can probably talk for another 30 minutes about Joe Douglas and really getting deep into the draft and free agency a little more, but I don't want to make this video too long. Leave a comment down below what you guys think of Joe Douglas. Do you think he's building this team the right way? How did he handle his first offseason in 2020? I think he did a phenomenal job, and remember, like I said, like 20 times in this video, it feels like he is not building this team to succeed in 2020. He's building this team to succeed in the future, this decade. He wants to compete at a consistent level. He's building for the future. That's all I really have to say for this video. I'm really excited to bring you guys more videos. I have a lot of series lined up, so make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. And I'll catch you guys in my next video. Let's go Jets. Peace.